So, as a journalist and a writer, I believe in the power of words. I think it's often good to have words to describe phenomenon. And I find it interesting that this started, quiet quitting was grassroots, and then the corporate consultants kind of took that over with the quiet firing and the quiet hiring. I'm of two minds here, and I'm curious to hear what you think. Is it good that we're taking these terms and co-opting them from a grassroots movement or a grassroots social movement? Or are we normalizing the potential downside of quiet? I would argue that the quiet firing is not something we want to normalize. I guess what I'm curious about, like, is this conversation going anywhere? Are these terms going anywhere?
To me at the moment, it feels a little sensationalized. And I think that's a very dangerous place because I think in that sensational media, what we tend to use is the leverage of pitting one against another, right? So, in storytelling, there has to be the enemy and there has to be the virtuous person, right? That's what makes good storytelling. That's why we tune in and watch on Netflix or whatever. And so there's that storytelling element that I feel like happens when it gets captured by the media. And that's dangerous because we cannot create healthy workplaces when we have us versus them mentality happening. Our thoughts precede our behavior. So if we're thinking that person is against me, then we're going to behave in defensive ways, right? And so we're not going to come together in a collegial way to really make the productivity happen that we want to make happen. We're going to start to see decline because of that. So I think that is the real danger of having it trend and really go viral, which is what it did. And the other thing that happens is it's the telephone game that we learned years and years ago as young people. What the original definition of quiet hiring was when that management consultant coined it, and then how it gets warped and evolved as other people begin to use it. You can end up in a completely different place. You can totally lose the thread of the idea, and it can become something much more sinister than what was intended in most cases, because we tend to sensationalize the negative news, right? So the more negative spin, the more people pay attention. I mean, when we learn that about the social media algorithms, right? This is in our DNA. This is part of our psychology, our biology. So we tend to emphasize that. And I think that is very dangerous for trying to build happy, productive cultures and workplaces that really allow people to thrive and bring their full potential. I think you're setting the precedence when you're in those conversations from that us versus them place of seeding toxic cultures.